In the quiet suburban neighborhood of Bayshore, Long Island, 9-year-old Katie Beers watched in terror, nearly hyperventilating with fear. A middle-class hamlet provided the backdrop for the chilling events that would soon unfold. A man, aged 43, resided in his family home on 1416 Saxon Avenue, his demeanor cool and calculated. A building contractor by trade, he had fashioned his own living space above the garage, just a few yards from the main house. Here, he lived largely undisturbed by his family, who occupied the primary residence. Intercoms scattered throughout the house facilitated communication, yet allowed him the autonomy he craved within his secluded quarters. Unbeknownst to anyone, he had spent years meticulously constructing a subterranean tunnel leading to a concrete dungeon beneath his garage. The entrance to this clandestine passage was shrouded behind a hefty 200-pound concrete trapdoor, concealed by a removable bookcase in his unassuming abode. Unscrewing a panel, he revealed a hidden passage reaching down into the garage and further. Rolling up the beige carpet, he forcefully propelled Katie down the darkened hole, her protests falling on deaf ears. Emerging into a cramped space, Katie's eyes widened in horror as she beheld the tiny door that led to her grim confinement. Inside, a closet-like room greeted her, its walls covered in cork and foam insulation, muffling any sound that dared to escape. Elevated off the floor, a coffin-like cage loomed ominously, its contents shrouded in darkness save for the flickering light of a television secured with a padlock. Despite its oppressive confines, the bunker boasted essential amenities, including a toilet and a sophisticated CCTV system. These preparations, meticulously made by her abductor, were intended for the arrival of his captive, Katie Beers, laying the groundwork for the harrowing ordeal that would soon unfold within its grim confines. It was at this time that after 19 missed calls, her aunt received a voice message from Katie.
Oh no, here he comes, I gotta go.
Welcome to another episode of Sofa, Mocha, and Mystery. My name is Taya. Today we delve into the case of Katie Beers, a young girl whose life took a harrowing turn after being targeted and eventually abducted following years of calculated planning. On December 28, 1992, just 2 days before her 10th birthday, Katie Beers eagerly awaited her trip to Spaceplex with John Esposito, a trusted family friend. Gripping onto John's back as they rode his motorcycle, Katie relished the freedom of riding on a motorbike and eagerly anticipated their arrival to Spaceplex, a park filled with activities and entertainment for youth. Amidst the thrill of the park, John surprised her with an early birthday gift, a Barbie dream house. John, known for his involvement in the local Big Brothers Big Sisters program, a non-profit organization mentoring youth aged 6 to 18 by trained adult volunteers, often accompanied children like Katie on outings. However, their day took a sinister turn when Katie was separated from John and confronted by a knife-wielding stranger, disappeared. Despite John's efforts to locate her, Katie had vanished, prompting him to alert security and the authorities. John Esposito, a trusted figure in Katie's life, had provided her with much-needed support and companionship. However, just days before her birthday, her world was shattered when she was abducted, setting off a chain of events that would change her life forever. Accompanied by John, Katie's journey to Spaceplex marked the beginning of a nightmare she never could have imagined. From within the cage suspended from the ceiling, Katie felt the weight of the rough chain around her neck, a stark contrast to her slight frame. Despite her dire circumstances, she found a glimmer of hope in the news coverage of her disappearance, knowing that they were searching for her. She heard a faint sound from beyond the soundproof room, and moments later, the door creaked open slightly, allowing a whisper of fresh air to filter in. Despite her circumstances, Katie attempted to establish a rapport with her captor, engaging him in conversations. She posed questions about her future, expressing concerns about school survival and her aspirations for marriage and children. However, her captor responded with sardonic remarks, suggesting that she would have a life with him instead. For the ensuing 16 days, her captor routinely descended into the tunnel, subjecting Katie to relentless sexual abuse. Despite his heinous acts, he occasionally permitted her to enter the slightly more spacious section of the bunker, only to return her to her confining, coffin-sized cell before departing. During his visits, the man attempted to appease Katie with meager comforts, providing blankets, toys, junk food, and soda. However, amidst the darkness of her captivity, the television emerged as Katie's beacon of hope, offering glimpses of news reports detailing the ongoing search efforts to find her. In a desperate attempt to regain some semblance of control, Katie covertly held onto a key she had stumbled upon, granting her brief respites from captivity in the larger section of the bunker when her captor was away. Confronted with a chilling request from her abductor to stage her death through a photograph in a bid to halt investigations, Katie stayed alert, sleep evading her as she had adamantly refused to consume any food that might have been tampered with. Throughout the 17 days which Katie Beers remained captive in the small bunker, this man raped her almost daily. He did indeed seem to be planning a future life with her. However, as Katie continued prying and questioning as to the long-term management of having her stay there, she noticed that her captor's resolve began to waver. Katie observed her family's desperate pleas for her release or any information regarding her whereabouts. She followed the case closely, fully aware that her family had been considered prime suspects. During her early childhood, she resided on Long Island with her biological mother and older half-brother, John Beers. However, her mother, Marilyn, was often neglectful, leaving Katie and her older brother in the care of their godmother, Linda Ingeleri, and her husband, Sal. At the age of 9, Katie faced abandonment when her mother left her in the care of her godparents, Linda and Sal. However, what should have been a place of safety turned into a nightmare of abuse. Katie described her time with the godparents as being treated like a servant and a slave, subjected to tasks such as cooking, cleaning, and laundry. From the age of 2, she was also sexually assaulted by Sal. When she was 7, Katie bravely attempted to disclose the truth about her godmother's husband, hoping for intervention and protection. However, her godmother's dismissive response only worsened her plight, as she was accused of lying. Barred from attending school and cut off from society, Katie found herself in complete isolation. Amidst this darkness, her only source of comfort was John Esposito. Their bond provided her with a sense of safety and understanding that she desperately needed. With no peers her own age, Katie's happiest moments were shared with John, whose support and companionship she cherished deeply. As the case evolved, the FBI focused their investigation on two primary suspects: Marilyn, Katie's dysfunctional and incompetent biological mother, and Linda, her godmother. Of the two, Linda seemed to have the most to gain from Katie's disappearance, especially given the sexual assault allegations against her husband. A crucial breakthrough occurred during the analysis of the phone message left for Linda. Investigators traced the call to a payphone at Spaceplex. However, upon closer examination, they noted a significant detail: the absence of any background noise in the call. This anomaly suggested that the message had been pre-recorded elsewhere, casting doubt on its authenticity. As scrutiny intensified, John Esposito's alibi and narrative began to crumble. His once solid story now faced skepticism, leading investigators to zero in on him as the prime suspect in Katie's abduction. As the investigation honed in on John, the FBI meticulously searched his property and the family home, hoping to uncover any clue leading to Katie's abduction. Despite their efforts, no evidence was found. Police and the press maintained constant surveillance around his house, unaware that Katie was essentially under their noses the whole time, watching the events unfold on the news. Although a thorough inspection of his residence yielded no evidence, a background check raised suspicions due to his affiliation with the Big Brother, Big Sister Association, a program he proudly claimed to be a part of. Esposito had in fact been denied access to the group due to being involved in the abduction of a 7-year-old child 15 years prior. With this revelation, the media attention intensified around his house and garage even further. For Katie, the betrayal was unfathomable. John Esposito, her supposed best friend, had been planning and scheming, ultimately orchestrating her abduction for years. As the pressure mounted and Katie's questioning persisted, coupled with her innocence, Esposito's composed facade began to crack. He spoke to Katie about himself and leaving a note on his person giving instructions on where and how to find her. Eventually, however, he confided in his attorney, divulging the whereabouts of Katie's captivity. This shocking revelation stunned all involved, exposing Esposito not as a mere kidnapper but the calculated mastermind behind the abduction. Guiding law enforcement officials and the district attorney, Esposito meticulously outlined the intricate process of unveiling the concealed dungeon. Watching in disbelief, they followed his instructions, maneuvering through a complex series of over 30 steps. From shifting a wheeled bookshelf to lifting a vinyl floor, and employing a block and tackle system to move a 200-pound concrete block, the meticulousness of Esposito's plan unfolded before their eyes. Descending into the underground chamber through a concealed passageway, they finally reached the grim space where Katie had endured her captivity. In the hands of law enforcement, the full extent of Esposito's actions finally came to light. Rather than taking Katie to Spaceplex, he had lured her to his home under the pretense of playing video games, where they sat on his bed. For nearly 2 years, he had been attempting to isolate her, and to Katie's horror, she realized that as a young girl, she had innocently played in the very dirt that would become the foundation of the dungeon built to imprison her. Making sexual advances on Katie, she had brushed him off and pushed him away. At that point, he forcibly picked her up and carried her towards the hideaway beneath his home. Once she was imprisoned, he went to Spaceplex where he played the recording of her asking for help at a payphone. A witness later stated seeing him alone at the park. Esposito pleaded guilty to kidnapping and was sentenced to 15 years to life. During his trial, Katie said he had assaulted her during her captivity. Although he was not charged with this, the judge sentencing him agreed with her. Esposito was found dead in his cell of apparently natural causes on September 4th, 2013, shortly after his fourth parole hearing in 20 years. Sal Ingeleri was convicted of 2 counts of sexual abuse and served 12 years for molesting Katie. During the investigation into the kidnapping, authorities discovered that he had sexually abused Katie before she was abducted. He was prosecuted additionally for those crimes. He died in prison in 2009. Shortly after her rescue, Katie was sent to live with foster parents in East Hampton, New York, due to the neglect and abuse her and her brother had experienced before the kidnapping. Katie was provided with anonymity and raised by her foster parents until adulthood. In January 2013, Katie spoke publicly for the first time about her ordeal and revealed that she was now married with 2 children and living the life she had always dreamed of. During the same month, she published a memoir about her ordeal. Thank you for joining us for another episode of Sofa, Mocha, and Mystery.